Well, across this country, on Tuesday, it was Election Day, and regardless of your political opinion or conviction, I think we can all as Americans agree, thankfully, the ads are over. Now, that is, and we probably should stop and pray for the people of Georgia. Can you imagine those poor souls between now and the first week of December, what they are going to be inundated with in terms of ads? But of course, presidential years are big, and then the midterms, so every 2 years, those are big political years. And there's all these robocalls that you get that you hang up on, and they always call it the worst time, though, too. And anyway, so we have all those, and they're a constant aggravation. And I don't know that they move the needle at all, but they do make your blood boil. Then you go to the mail, and then your mailbox is full of all of these different flyers and placards and things trying to influence your vote one way or the other. And those are a nuisance as well, because I don't know about you, I don't even look at them. They just go straight in the trash. I think the only people grateful for them is the post office. But anyway, so you've got that. But the worst, though, are the commercials. I hate the commercials. And in truth, it doesn't make any difference which side you're talking about. Most of them, virtually all of them, are fairly deceptive. And there's going to be some measure of truth in there, but we're not going to say the whole statement. We're not going to put the whole thing out there so that there's context, so that it's actually an informed thing. We're just going to be be nasty and take shots one side at the other. And so that stinks. I can't stand those commercials. But as much as I don't like a political commercial, and I really don't like them, do you know what's worse than a political commercial? A pharmaceutical commercial. And those things are ridiculous. I hate these commercials for prescription drugs. And first of all, I don't like them out of the gate because of this fact. I don't know if you're aware of this. You can't get prescription drugs on your own. You could go to CVS right now and say, give me some whatever you saw on the TV this morning, and they're not going to give it to you. Why? Because your doctor has to prescribe it. Well, then why are you telling me about it? Why don't you just tell my doctor about it? And let's face it, if you wind up taking a medicine because you go to your doctor and say, hey, I saw this ad on TV, how about giving me some of that? If your doctor does that, go ahead and change doctors. So they're frustrating because of that. They're also frustrating, I don't know if you've noticed this, there is no such thing as a 30-second prescription medicine commercial. They're not. They're at least 60 seconds, oftentimes 90 seconds. Why? Because they tell you a little bit about what the drug is about, but then what do they spend the last 30 to 45 seconds talking about? The side effects. And when you hear these side effects, what are you thinking? Why in the world would anyone take that? Side effects include heart attack, stroke, pregnancy, upset stomach, diarrhea, constipation, excessive sweating, body odor. I mean, honestly, about anything that the list keeps going on and on and on and on and on again. And it's amazing all of these side effects that you hear about with respect to these drugs, and there's so blessed many of them. But the reality is they're doing that because the FDA requires that they disclose these possible side effects. But it's not simply that it is prescription drugs that have side effects. Many common drugs that you can go today to the grocery store, to the drugstore, off the counter that you can pick up off the shelf and take. In fact, some of you have taken some of these this morning. Even after Sunday school, maybe you stopped, for example, this morning and took an Advil. Of course, that's the brand name for the generic drug ibuprofen, all right? I like ibuprofen. It's great for me for headaches. Some of you take it as dealing with headaches, maybe body aches, muscle pains, dental pain, issues like that. But ibuprofen, though it is exceedingly common, and I don't know how many billions and billions of Advil and general ibuprofen tablets have been produced and ingested just by Americans, but it's a stack of them. But are you aware of some of the possible side effects of ibuprofen? I looked some of them up this week. Advil can cause a condition known as Stevens-Johnson syndrome. I didn't know what that was, do you? Well, it is a syndrome that causes blistering over the entire body. if, after getting Stevens-Johnson syndrome, if you continue taking ibuprofen afterwards, you can develop something called toxic epidermal necrolysis, which causes third-degree burns over your entire body, and it's fatal in 30% of people. Or, wait, there's more. By taking Advil, ibuprofen. You can also get a specific type of stomach ulcer that causes you to throw up a substance that looks like coffee. Why? Because your stomach is bleeding and it produces this, and then once expelled, it looks like coffee. Isn't that great? So, if you had a headache right now, what do you think you would do? You want to go get some Advil? You'd probably say, no, I might pass on that. Does anybody have any Tylenol? What may help in knowing is this. Stevens-Johnson syndrome, coming as a side effect of ibuprofen, is particularly rare. 5 people out of 1 million will ever develop this. That is 0.0005%. If you were to take a math test on Tuesday and you got a 99.9995, wouldn't you feel pretty good about yourself? This past week, they had the drawing for the lottery. If you could buy a ticket and you knew it was 99.9995% certain that you would win, well, it's not gambling anymore at that point, is it? No, it's not. It's like it's a sure thing. So hearing that it is 0.0005% likely that something like this would happen to you in terms of a side effect, what are you going to do? You probably reach for the Advil because you're going to say this. It's likely that that's not going to happen. When we're thinking about side effects, it is not simply important to us to know what the possible side effects are. What we want to know in addition to that is how likely is it that I'm going to experience that? For example, I'm not going to take a butter knife this afternoon and stick it into an outlet. Do you know why? Because there's a 100% chance that I'm going to get shocked. When we're thinking about side effects, we want to know how likely something is, and that will shape, it'll affect, it'll weigh on our decision as to whether or not we're going to do something or not. Now, we're thinking about this as part of a series that we started last week that I'm calling Waiting on God. And we're thinking about the experience of being followers of God. There are going to be instances where you come to crossroads where you're waiting on God to do something. You're waiting on a response. You're waiting on God to act in a particular way. You're waiting on Him to open an opportunity. You're waiting for Him to guide, to give you an answer about what it is that you should do. And you're sitting there and you are waiting. And we realize this about ourselves, that none of us likes to wait. We don't want to wait on anything, including God Himself. We don't want to wait on any of that. And so we're likely, many times, to say, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to do something. What I want you to realize is that if you do that, there are some side effects to not waiting on God. And it's not simply some things that could happen, but in truth, some things that are likely to happen. That's the question we want to think about today. What are the possible side effects of not waiting on God? What's likely to happen? Look with me in your Bibles today to Exodus chapter 32. Exodus chapter 32. We're going to look at these first 6 verses. We're told that when the people saw that Moses delayed in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us who will go before us, because this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." Aaron replied to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the gold rings that were on their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took the gold from them, fashioned it with an engraving tool, and made it into the image of a calf. And they said, "Israel, these are your gods who brought you out from the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of it and made an announcement, "There will be a festival to the Lord tomorrow." Early the next morning they arose, offered burnt offerings, and presented fellowship offerings to what? To this calf. And the people sat down to eat, drink, and got up to party. What's going on here? The people of God decided we're not going to wait on God. Now, that's been going on in the days of even Moses all the way up to Charlton Heston. And people today are still not waiting on God, people that are followers of God. But you need to know this. If you decide you're not going to wait, there's some stuff that not simply could happen, there's some stuff that's likely to happen. What's likely to happen? Well, first of all, what's likely to happen is this. You are likely to manufacture false realities. You are likely to manufacture false realities. All right, so what's going on here? The children of Israel have been 400 years serving as slaves in Egypt. You remember God raises up Moses to be their leader, and you remember the story of the plagues and all that stuff. Finally, they have left Egypt after 4 centuries, and they're headed where? To the Promised Land. They don't know how to get there, and so God is supernaturally guiding them. You remember there's a cloud during the day and some sort of light in the night, a pillar of fire, the Bible describes, that would guide them if they were to travel by night. It takes them a lengthy time to get there. And one of the things that happens on the way there is that they stop at the foot of a mountain, Mount Sinai. And God leads Moses to go up and spend some time with him on the mountain. And what is going on the mountain? And the people don't know all of this. But what's going on is that Moses is receiving the law from God. And so he's receiving tablets of stone that God has etched what we know as the 10 Commandments into them. But beyond that, God is fleshing out more statutes, more boundaries, more expectations that he's going to have for them as they go into the Promised Land so that they can operate as the people of God, living how God wants his people to operate. So that's going on. Moses has been on the mountain at this point for 40 days. For 40 days. And that's a while. That's more than a month. And so the clock is ticking. Their daily calendar, they keep pulling off another day, and another day. And so we're told in verse 32, when the people saw that Moses delayed in coming down from the mountain, we have been and we continue to wait. Maybe you've been there this week. You've been waiting, and specifically, you've been waiting on God to do something. You've asked him to move in a particular way, to guide, to answer, to do something, to provide some sort of opportunity, and you've been waiting. And maybe you've been waiting for more than a day. You've been waiting for a few weeks. Maybe it is that you have been waiting for months, and so you can say, I can identify with where they are. So they said, hey, Moses, what's going on with him? And so they go to Aaron. This is the brother of Moses, and they say, how about making us gods who will go before us? Because this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. So Moses, I don't see him. Aaron, we need you to do something. You're the number 2 guy. This is what's going to be the first high priest for the nation of Israel. Moses, we need you to do something. We need you to make us a god that will go on before us. He really fights them off, doesn't he? No, give me your jewelry. But here's the question. Why do the people do this? Now, I realize that they have been waiting more than a week, more than a month. I'm not suggesting that it was easy then, nor is it easy for us today as we are waiting on God. They were waiting on God to finish with Moses, waiting to hear what God wanted them to do next. And so they have been waiting. And they tell Aaron to do this. Make us an idol. Make us a god. Make us something that we can put my name is God sticker on. Make us something. But why do they do that? I think the answer is at the end of verse 1. They say, we don't know what has happened to him. Now, on the surface, that comes across like a declaration of benign ignorance. Well, I just don't know. We don't know. He's been gone for weeks. We don't know where he is exactly. We don't know what he's doing. Is everything okay? Is he going to show back up today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? We have no idea. Are all of those true statements? Yes. But is this really more a declaration of ignorance, or is this more a declaration of what they believe to be true? I think it is an unstated declaration of what they believe to be true. What do they think is true? Moses is not coming back. Why do I say that? Because of what's getting ready to happen. Do you think for a moment that they had any sense whatsoever that if they go to Aaron and say, hey, make us an idol, that he would actually do it, and then that Moses would show up and somehow he'd be okay with that? I think that they felt with certainty Moses is gone. And how did they arrive at that conclusion? Because they have been waiting. They have been waiting, and as they have been waiting, they have been thinking, and they decide we have got to act. We've got to do something. We cannot, we must not, we will not wait on God. And they arrive at that point because they created a false reality. What's the false reality? Moses is dead. Is Moses dead? Nope. And they're getting ready to find that out big time. Caroline and I have been married for 18 years, and candidly, she gets on my nerves. I get on her nerves. It's what husbands and wives do for each other. It's our daily gift. Now, but every one of us has our quirks, and there's things that, the person dearest on earth to you, as much as you love them, there's things that they do that aggravate you, things that you do that aggravate them. It's true for all of us, all of our relationships. Something that Caroline does, and thankfully it's not as bad as it used to be, but Caroline is a bad phone answerer, a very bad phone answerer. And so, especially if she leaves the house, so she's going to leave with a cell phone. I cannot tell you how many times in 18 years that she could have just left, whatever it is, and I try to call, and I cannot get her. And so it'll ring, it goes straight to voicemail, just ring, voicemail, ring, voicemail. And sometimes it's because her phone is on silent, and so she didn't hear it ring. Sometimes it's because the battery is dead. Sometimes it's because it was left in the car and she's gone in the store. There's always some sort of reason. I have repeatedly jested that I'm going to buy her a walkie-talkie with no batteries in it, that it would be just as effective. And so, anyway, that's just kind of aggravating. Again, I do plenty of things off the charts that aggravate her. I don't think that I think they're gifts, but anyway. Drives me crazy. But there have been some instances where that really bothered me. There was one a couple of years ago, and I don't remember exactly where Caroline was going. I think it was to a wedding, but it was out of town, and I don't remember exactly where it was. I think it was towards the mountains. It was not around here. It was more than an hour or so away. And so it was on a Saturday, because that's what weddings do. They ruin your Saturdays. And so she has gone to this wedding out of town, and she's been gone for a while. I knew what time the wedding was, and she wasn't going to stay for the full reception, but fairly quickly I think going to be heading back because it was Saturday. We got church on Sunday. And at this point, I know she should be driving. And I call her, and I get her voicemail. Here we go again. All right, so I'll wait a little bit. I'm going to dial it back. All right, so at this point, she should have heard 8 rings, but all I get is the voicemail. I'm going to do this one more time. And so now we're up to 12 rings, and I can't get her. Well, that's the same old drill. Okay, I'm not thinking much about this. But I let another 15 minutes pass, so she's that much closer. So perhaps she was on a road that didn't have great cell phone service or something like that. So at this point, she's bound to be on the interstate, so I should be able to get her. I call her, I get voicemail. I call her, I get voicemail. I call her, I get voicemail. I wait a little bit, and I call her again, and I get voicemail. Now, what's going on at this point? I'm beginning to think. And as I'm beginning to think, I begin to get imaginative. Wonder why she's not answering that phone. I wonder if she's okay. I wonder if there's been an accident. And is the car in the ditch? And let's be honest, the thing I'm most worried about is it's going to be me and 6 kids. But candidly, you begin to run through these scenarios like, what if something has straight up happened to her? I mean, what if she's not answering the phone because she can't answer the phone? And I'm beginning, so what am I redial. I have no idea how many times I dialed that phone. But I'm not getting her. And so finally, I know her email password, and so I logged into Gmail, and you can do device locator. And that will cause, even if a phone is on silent, if it's on, you can make that device ring. And so I logged in and made her device ring. And so at that point, she hears her phone ring, and she looks down, and there's like 97 missed calls. And she sees all these missed calls, and she's a little frustrated when she calls. She's like, is the house burning? Well, no, but I couldn't get you, and what? I had decided that something really bad had happened. But isn't that what many times is going on when we wait? We begin to think, our minds begin to churn, and we come up with a scenario that in our mind seems plausible. In our mind seems logical. That seems, okay, that's 2 plus 2, that's 4. That's exactly what has happened. And isn't that what is going on here? They've been waiting. Well, Moses, it's been 3 weeks, 4 weeks now. All kinds of stuff can happen on a mountain. It gets cold at night. Moses is no spring chicken. Maybe he's probably gone. Moses is probably dead. It was nice knowing him. We better do something. Why? Because they have decided, they're certain, Moses is gone. Why did that happen? Why are they getting ready to act? Because in waiting, they allowed their mind, instead of saying, we're just going to wait, and we're waiting on the one who knows what's going on. We're waiting on one that led us out of Egypt. We're waiting on one who raised up Moses. We're waiting on one that parted the sea so that we could walk through and then swallowed Pharaoh's army. That's the one that we're following, and he knows that we're waiting. Instead of just continuing to wait on him, they decided we'd better do something. Why? Because when you decide to act, when you're waiting and God's not doing what you think fast enough, you're likely to manufacture false realities. You'll begin to say to yourself things like this: well, I had better do something because this opportunity is, this door's getting ready to close. And if I don't do something, I'm going to miss this. And if I miss this, it'll never be this good again. I'd better do something now. I'd better get into this relationship now. I better say yes to this because if I don't, it could be my face on the old maid card of Dex. And all these terrible things are going to happen. I'm going to miss out on all of these things if I don't wait, because we have allowed our minds to go crazy, and we're likely, it's not just possible, we're likely to manufacture false realities. Now, why does that matter? It matters because those false realities will lead us to the second thing that's likely to happen, which is this. You are likely to craft inferior solutions. You are likely to craft inferior solutions. So they have in their minds, they've gotten to the point, Moses is a goner. I mean, it was nice knowing him, but Moses is gone, and we had better do something. And so they go to Aaron's brother, and they say, or they go to Moses' brother Aaron, and they say, come make us these gods who will go before us. We don't know what's happened to Moses. It seems pretty clear that that Aaron must be in agreement with them, because there's no hint of protest. There's no, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're just not going to do that. We're going to continue to wait on God. God knows we're here. The cloud is still on the mountain. We are going to stay here. I don't know how much longer. It might be a lot longer. I don't know. We're going to trust God. He knows where we are. You don't get that. He says, go ahead and get those earrings. Let's put them all in a pile. So you get this massive number of people. They've all thrown their jewelry into a pile. And Aaron apparently takes this, melts this, and it's likely that this goes on for more than a day. I mean, as you're reading this, you might think, oh, this is just like an afternoon, but it's almost certain this takes longer than a day or two even to happen. And melts all this precious metal down, and he fashions it into a calf. It's interesting to me. He doesn't even make some mighty Brahman bull. You ever been to New York City? Maybe you've seen out in front of the stock market, they'll have that big bull, symbolic of a big bull, a big beastly thing. He doesn't do that. He doesn't even craft some massive stately heifer. He makes a baby cow. So he's crafted this baby calf, but whatever this thing looked like, as soon as he finishes, look what the people do. They say, Israel, these are your gods who brought you up from the land of Egypt. It must have been pretty cool looking what he made. In verse 5, Aaron, what he does is, so now we have this that we're saying is God, and it says that he builds an altar in front of it and then makes an announcement. Tomorrow, there's going to be a festival, and it's a festival. Look at your Bible. It says to the Lord. You see it's in all caps? If you see that, that's Yahweh. You see what they've done? They've taken God's name tag and stuck it on this baby cow and said, Oh, that's God, and tomorrow we're going to worship that tomorrow. And so early the next morning, people get up. It's time to party, to offer these offerings, to present these fellowship offerings, to give these sacrifices. They sat down to eat, drink, and be merry. They got up to party. Why? Because there is a problem. We don't know what's happened to Moses. Aaron, you got to do something. Okay, well, give me your stuff, and we'll make this. And, oh, okay, now we had a problem. Now we've got a solution. Moses was gone. We needed leadership, and so now we have this baby cow that's our God. Problem solved. They thought that they had solved the problem, but in truth, they've created a far worse problem. God tells Moses, if you read the rest of the chapter, God tells Moses, you better get down from the mountain now. Moses comes down the mountain. He sees what's going on, this festival going on, and people, they're worshiping. I mean, he's up there with the presence of God, and they're down there worshiping a baby cow. It's crazy. He's so furious that he takes the tablets that God has etched the Ten Commandments on, he throws them to the ground, and they break. Moses is angry. God is angry. 3,000 people are getting ready to die because they had made a solution. There was a problem, we fixed it. We should have waited on God. We could have waited on God. We don't need to wait on God because we have come up with this. We know how things are. Moses is dead, so we need to take care of this. Problem solved. But the solution they had was altogether inferior. Just the other night, we were getting ready to eat supper. Caroline had finished making it, and she told me get everybody in the kitchen. So I had rung the dinner bell and told everybody it's time to eat. Peter, our 6-year-old, comes in there. And keep in mind, people at this point are in the process. We're real fancy. We say, here's your paper plate, go to the stove and fill it, and then sit down and eat. And so people are already in the process of getting their plates to go sit down in the dining room to eat. And Peter goes to the cabinet, pulls out a granola bar, and says, can I eat this? I'm hungry. And so I got to say to him what I am certain more than a few of you heard as a child, or maybe something. There's a few things that you kind of look forward to being able to say as a parent, right? And what did I get to say? No, because you'll say it, ruin your dinner. Thank you. No, you can't have that because you're going to ruin your dinner. We're getting ready to eat. No, you can't have that because to do so is to ruin your dinner. By going ahead and pre-opting this, by going ahead and doing something, what you're going to have is going to be of less consequence, of less nutritional value, of less meal satisfaction. So we're saying, wait, because what you're choosing is not as good as what you could get just by waiting. I understand it is so much easier for me to say this than it is for me or any of you to live this, but we've got to get this etched in our minds and hearts. Anything that I come up with as an alternative to God's plan is inferior to what He has for me. Everything that you come up with that is, instead of waiting on God, and you say, well, I can't because the door's getting ready to close. The deadline is on this date. This person might not ask me out again. This whatever. You can come up with that scenario and say, I've got to do something. I've got to have a solution. Whatever it is that you come up with is always, 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 always going to be inferior to what God wanted to give you. Why does this matter? Because when we do this, when we act presumptuously, when we act preemptively, there are costs that we had no idea we were getting ready to experience. Again, the people are mad, Moses is mad. God is mad, and 3,000 people are getting ready to die. That just earlier were partying. That just earlier said, oh, no, we got the solution. We got our God here with us. And they're getting ready to check out. Had no idea that was coming. But why did it happen? I'll answer it very simply. Because they decided they weren't going to wait on God. And when you decide you don't want to wait on God, you may not craft something with your hands, but what you're going to do is to position yourself in God's place and say, I know best. Can I just tell you, I don't know what's best for me, but God does. You don't know what's best for you, but God does. And if he is leading you to a crossroads where he's leading you to wait, I'm telling you, whatever it is that he's leading you to wait for, it will be worth it. Will you bow your heads with me?